What's up, fight fans? This is Kurtzville with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Terence Bud Crawford. Terence Bud Crawford, the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, has this to say about Errol "The Truth" Spence. He says, and they said it was me, shrugging emoji. I rest my case now. On to the next. That chapter is now closed. Wow. Those are the words from Terence Crawford as he was referring to Errol "The Truth" Spence, because as we know, Errol Spence was on Dazn yesterday. He was at the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, and he was scouting Canelo Alvarez. Okay, he did an interview with Chris Mannix with Dazn and said, hey, you know, I could go to 160 and fight Canelo Alvarez. But then he was asked about Terence Crawford, of course, first, because that's the fight that everyone wants to see. He was like, oh, well, that fight could happen. You know, it could possibly happen, but we got to see. We have to sit down and see. Okay, that's bullshit. Oh, well, we'll give him the 60-40 or the 70-30 or whatever we give him. And Bob Arum needs to stop lying, which I don't know what that meant. You know, obviously Bob lied about something according to Errol Spence, but you look at that, you know, 60-40, okay, that's, you know, that's doable. 70-30 or whatever we give him, that's more bullshit. Because then you're saying like, okay, you acknowledge this guy in your pound for pound list and you want to give him a champion, a guy that's been champion in 3 weight classes, right? You want to give this guy 30% of your 70% because you didn't go anywhere else in boxing as far as divisions, right? No, so just because you're at a weight class and you're a two-time champion, you want to give Terence Crawford 30 or 70, 30% to your 70% or whatever. See, that whatever means, hey, we're going to give you whatever, you can take it or leave it type of shit. That's what that means. You know, but besides that, okay, Errol Spence was at a Dazn card. That means he paid for a Dazn ticket to see Canelo Alvarez fight. So that means you were there because you were scouting the fight. You made it apparent that you wanted to fight Canelo Alvarez. Why would you make it and go out on a limb and use that type of energy to fight Canelo Alvarez, but you couldn't on another whole different network, on a fucking app like they say over there in the PBC? Because, you know, they don't really respect apps or the Dazn over there. Dazn is just as worse, if not worse, than ESPN and Top Rank. You've seen how Errol Spence was acting when he was there supporting Deontay Wilder when he was fighting Tyson Fury. He was sitting around looking at people like they had shit on him because they were ESPN fighters. Facts. But you have no problem going over to a Dazn card. That card, yeah, that's an app. That's not pay-per-view based. That has a totally different structure than you. But then you have no problem. Oh, I can go up to fight Canelo. Now, did he mention Dazn? Did he mention Fox? Did he mention any of that discrepancy or conflict when it came to promotions or networks? No. All he said is, I can move up to 160. You see how easy that shit was? Okay, that's what Terence Crawford's saying. Hey, I'm done. You thought it was me. It was never Terence Crawford. It was always Errol Spence because Errol Spence knows he has options. And that's a totally different video. But right now, I get why Terence Crawford is acting the way he's acting. Because it doesn't matter to these fighters what fans want. They could give a shit what fans want. They just worry about what makes them the most money. Okay, and that's it. So before, you know, the whole big thing about the networks and conflicts, and I ain't going over there, I ain't going to ESPN, I fight on Fox or PBC, Showtime, right? He wouldn't be doing that shit if he fought Canelo. He'd be taking that fucking money. And on top of that, he's fighting Canelo because he knows Canelo has the fan base just like Mikey Garcia did. You know? And it's sad. Yes, he doesn't get supported more by his own. That's the truth. He doesn't. That's why he has to go somewhere else to fight someone else. But it seems to me like Errol Spence is selling out for a paycheck. That's what it seems like to me. You know, I guess it's a good excuse as any. You're a prize fighter. But at the end of the day, don't say it's about networks and you really know it's not. You don't want to fight Terence Crawford because, one, you could fucking lose. And two, you don't get the money or the money you felt that you can get from someone like fighting Canelo. That's what we're dealing with. But if that's the case, just say what it is. Quit bullshitting people. And then really, like a lot of people, you know, the fanboys. Fanboys are people that are kind of stupid in the head or refuse to understand logic reasoning when it comes to certain realities. And the certain realities is Errol Spence never had the energy to fight Terence Crawford. And he used every excuse in the book. Well, then Canelo comes around, the money man, I was born ready. That guy, he knows, oh, I'll go fight him. Because he knows there's M's. You know, and he said, oh, we could sell out a stadium, AT&T Stadium, 100,000 plus. That's what he wants to do. He wants to be that guy that he wants to fight for the money. But so he joins Amir Khan. He joins Kell Brook. He joins Mikey Garcia, ironically, in that quest to do so. But see, those guys, though, did it for legacy. Khan thought he could beat Canelo, not because he could get paid. Yeah, he knows he's going to get paid because Amir Khan is not a stranger to big paydays because he has support. His people support him in the UK and in Pakistan. Mikey Garcia didn't do it for the money. He did it for legacy. Brook, the same thing. Brook thought he could beat Triple G, right? Errol Spence, though, is doing it for money. That's how it's different from his migration and his attempt to go up in 160. And you're fighting someone like Canelo, especially being a smaller guy, you could get knocked out. And then maybe the whole thing about his trainer is worried about how he could take punches or whatnot. It's basically who you get punched by. You know what I mean? But then again, he probably may get stopped if he fights because he's going to fight Canelo. You don't show up at a guy's card and say, hey, I want to, yeah, we could go up to fight Canelo. He's calling Canelo out, basically. Whereas Terence Crawford did that to you. I don't know what he's doing head out. I wouldn't come to his fights. You wouldn't come to his fights because you don't want to fight him. That's it. So just tell everybody, you know, I don't want to fight Terence Crawford. I want to fight Canelo. If I beat Canelo, then I go back to 147. But then at the grand scheme of it, why bother? Because then he'll be another Kell Brook at that point. Especially if he goes up there and gets stopped and he tries to come back. Then you fight Terence Crawford, then that fight will fizz out. And that was the biggest fight that everybody wanted to see. You know, skill set wise, stylistic wise, those type of guys. But he you know, I think at that point, he would have got his money. If it's a close fight or whatever, that would be a totally different story because, you know, Canelo is not really keen on doing rematches because the only person he did a rematch with was Triple G, and that's because of the obvious. It was such a close fight. But Terence Crawford, back to him, I don't blame him because it's like, yo, you know, he fuck going to 135 because remember he said that at one point. All right, man, I'm going back to 135. Fuck it. No, you don't have to worry about going back anywhere. Errol Spence is leaving. So fair enough. If he wants to leave, relinquish the belts, drop the belts, and let someone else fight for him. Let Terence Crawford fight Sean Porter or something because you don't want that fight. And he don't want that fight because it's not enough money for Errol Spence. That's why. And on top of it, his concern of losing. So why would he lose? Because if that was the case, why don't you just fight Terence Crawford, then go to 160? Because he knows Terence Crawford is a clear and present threat at the welterweight division. A guy like Terence Crawford is bad news. Even his trainer talks that shit down because he knows stylistically Terence Crawford is a nightmare for someone like Errol Spence. When a guy again tells you what you better not do, if you get in the ring with me, he's one dangerous customer. And that name is Terence Crawford. So Errol Spence, he calls out to Canelo because he knows that if I'm going to get beat, I'm going to get beat for a whole lot of money. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, you can't really blame him. My thing with Errol Spence is, hey, because I would love, don't get me wrong, the fight between Errol Spence and Canelo is going to be lit. That's an exciting fight, you know. But for him saying this and that and kind of walking around and skipping around those questions with Terence Crawford. Just stop. Just say, hey, I don't want to fight him. I want to fight Canelo. And he did that partially last night. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think of Terence Crawford stating that he's done with Errol Spence. Of course, please subscribe. Leave your comments below. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.